Hi, this is Dan Bullard, retired electronics engineer, sitting on the front deck of my house. But again, oh, it's a lovely day. It's almost a weekend. What do I care? I don't have to worry about it. I'm retired. I want to talk to you about the guy who came up with a formula that inspired and set the pace for the Bullard harmonic solution. This guy, David Hillel Wilson, he had a synthesizer museum on the East Coast in Nashville, New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken. And here's a website. There's a website where they documented what he did. There's even a video where you get to meet him. Unfortunately, you can't meet him now because he's dead. He died at age 49. But he did this thing. It's pretty cool. He ran this website called Analog Heaven. And in Analog Heaven, where apparently he is now, he took questions. And so somebody asked him a question: how did you determine the harmonics from a square wave based on its duty cycle? And what's the formula for that? And I wrote an article on this, so you can read all about it. You don't have to watch my videos. You can read the articles. Go to LinkedIn, read my articles. Come on, Caltech, you guys. And he says, so I read this stuff in Sham's mathematical reference, and it was a pretty cool book. And because I was volunteering at the library at the time, at the Vancouver Community Library, guess what we had in the library? We had Sham's series. And so I found the book he was talking about, opened the page, and it wasn't really that helpful for me because I'm not really an expert at this stuff. But apparently David Hillel Wilson was. And so he interpreted it, and he came up with a formula, and this is it. Problem is, he didn't test it thoroughly enough. That's one of the big benefits of being in the test business. I test everything. You know, it's like going back to the Tom Hanks movie, Castaway, where he was going to hang himself and then decided not to because he tested it, and he would have broken his back, or he wouldn't have died. He would have suffered in agony. So because he tests everything, and that's what I do. I test everything. So I took David Hillel Wilson's formula and I tested it, and it worked fine right up to 50% duty cycle, and then it didn't work anymore. It gave me negative values for the magnitude of a spectrum, and that's not good. Magnitude's always a positive value. So I said, okay, well, I know how to fix that, and I put in the absolute function, and from there I got it to work, and it worked really well. And so then down the road I decided to try to use that as the basis of the Bullard harmonic solution. I struggled for months trying to figure out, okay, if this guy's formula can predict the spectrum of the square wave, then I should be able to come up with a formula that predicts the harmonics of a sine wave that's been distorted. Because what is a square wave but a distorted sine wave? So I really didn't have much to go on other than David Hillel Wilson's formula. And so I worked on it, I struggled with it for a long time. Didn't sleep much. And so eventually I figured it out. I found one that worked, and it was the absolute value, not of the sine, absolute of the cosine of pi times whatever. And, you know, it's in my book. Don't wait for the movie. So, noisy vehicles over there. I see him. Anyway, so David Hillel Wilson, he did all this back in the 2000s, and then he died. And so they had this obituary for him in 2010. And very sad. But at least he did something. He did a lot of good things for a lot of people, and he did that for me, gave me the basis for the Bullard harmonic solution. And the Bullard harmonic solution predicts what the harmonic amplitudes will look like if you distort a sine wave at any particular angle. Only one angle. You can't use it for multiple angles. With a square wave, you don't have to worry about that because it goes up and it goes down. And so you don't have to worry about it. The harmonics are easily predictable. With the Bullard harmonic solution, it predicts it for a single angle, and that's as good as I can get. Somebody else can fiddle with it, but you know, you'll probably go to the trouble of developing the Fourier transform on your own, so it's not really worth it. Now, in regard to that last video I did, I went and poked around that guy's spectrum, and I found a setting. Remember, he spun that knob, and you could see how the spectrum changed. That's the harmonic signature. And so the harmonic signature was changing, and I think what he was doing, he was changing the gain of an amplifier, I think. And I should watch it again and figure it out, but, you know, I really don't care that much. Because I know how I have the right answer, and whatever he says is probably seriously in question anyway. But I did find one setting of his dial that equated to something I did not too long ago, and I have almost 900 views. Oh, a train coming. And so, remember I distorted the sine wave at 242.8473539 degrees. I have that memorized. And the reciprocal angle, 62.8473539 degrees, looks exactly the same. The harmonics look exactly the same because of law 6. Law 6 says the distortion at the reciprocal angle will look exactly the same. So you can't really tell the difference. That may be one reason why nobody's ever figured this out. I found the angle that he distorted this wave of, I think it was right around 62 degrees, 62 point something, and I think what he was doing was he was distorting both the top and bottom, and more or less equally, except there was an offset, and that's why you see even harmonics. So I think he was changing the gain, and you see the even harmonics that are relatively low relative to the odd harmonics. The even harmonics are relatively low, but still it follows that same pattern for 62 degrees. So I think he was clipping, yep, he's right there. He's trying to make sure nobody gets in his way. He was evenly clipping at 62 point something degrees, and also the reciprocal, because he was close to symmetrical, but not very close, because you know what happens if you distort the top and bottom equally and symmetrically, the even harmonics cancel out. Well, it was close. It wasn't very close, but it was kind of close. There must have been an offset there, and that's why you use a real tester. You know, I mean, you use what you can use, but if you have a real tester like, and I will say it again, an Applecos, it's very high accuracy, extremely high accuracy, and so you can make sure that you're not getting like a DC offset that you think is a problem. Remember in that Applecos video I found there was a 4 millifold offset. And because the Applecos is so accurate, I'm attributing that to the device. It was an Analog Devices A to D, and I'm not going to trust analog devices. I have seen what they do. I have seen what Maxim and Analog Devices, remember Maxim was bought by Analog Devices. So, you know, they had to have technical people in there looking at it. So, you know, Maxim was really good, but they weren't that good. They used spectrum analyzers in some cases to test devices. When I was there, I was testing some pretty wild devices, and there were some things they wouldn't let me do. And so I had to do some really crazy stuff. But I used the LTX Fusion, which I'd never used before, but you know, I mean, I can type, you know, or I used to be able to type. So I learned to type in C, I think it was C++, for the LTX Fusion. So I learned how to use the Fusion. I have used the Teradyne A5 series, I've used the Schlumberger, I've used all of these sensors. the thing is, you know, if you use a real tester with very high accuracy, you can discover a lot more than you can with these cheapo instruments that you buy from Radio Shack, which doesn't exist anymore, but I'm kind of teasing. So you can buy this junk stuff. The Applecos is really good, and I'm not getting paid by Applecos. In fact, I don't have any relationship with them at all. They won't talk to me, which is fine. Oh well. We had a good run, you know. I was charging them $100 an hour, and I mean, they could do without me. They could live without me. Anyway, so David Hull Wilson, he was a pretty good guy. Watch the video, you can see what kind of guy he was. He did some cool things, and he came up with the basis for the Bowler harmonic solution. I really wish he had lived to see that he helped me come up with that. But it's kind of like Chuck Everhart, right? I wish I had got Chuck Everhart to live long enough to see what I discovered, but, you know, he died in a plane crash, you know. You can't live forever. So, nobody will, and, you know, if you think you're gonna live forever, forget it. But when you're young, you think you will live forever, so that's just the way it is. Anyway, let's shorten this up. The train went by, and so once again, from the river, this damn Bowler